we only use 10% of our brains? That's one of the myths that I hear coming up again and again, and I think it's really interesting because it tells us a lot about how people understand or actually fundamentally misunderstand how the brain works, because the idea that we only use 10% of our brains or only use a small fraction of our brains in our daily life or in our work in particular is really a misunderstanding about how the brain works. It's not like we want our entire brain to be activated at the same time. It's not like we want all of our senses, all of our thoughts, all of our emotions to all be firing at exactly the same time, because that would be fundamentally overwhelming and confusing, and it's not how we process information, and it's not how we make best use of our bodies or our mental resources. So the idea that we use 10% of our brain power isn't really true. Our brains are specialized to use all sorts of different information to process different stimuli for, different contexts, for different uses, for different situations, right? We might use slightly different parts of our brain at work when we're using those cognitive processes related to processing information at work, to workplace relationships, to our social networks related to work. And we might use slightly different parts of our brain when we're, in our personal or romantic life, but there's a lot of overlap. And so we're using the whole brain in different parts and different ways and different patterns all the time, but we're not necessarily using all of it at once. And we wouldn't want to, because that's not how information processing works. That's not how we make sense of information. It's not like you want to fire up and access every single neuron in your brain at any given time, right? If you think about the kind of information you're processing right now, it's the auditory information from me speaking. You may or may not be watching the video of me talking. You're processing a specific set of information that's coming from your external environment, or in this case from me, but there's probably all sorts of other stuff going on. There might be scents or smells or sounds in the room or the environment you're in that are conflicting with that. If you start paying attention to other information, processing other information or distractions, it's not improving the amount of information. It's not increasing the amount of information you're getting. It's increasing the distraction. If you're at work, but you've got all sorts of other information and signals coming in, and if you've got multiple phones and different things going off, and you've got emails coming in, and you've got a laptop and a computer, and you've got all of this stuff that's activating different parts of your brain, that's firing up different sensory receptors in both your body and your mind, it can create conflicting and confusing information. It's not making you better. It's not making you more productive. Sometimes it's counterproductive, right? The excessive amount of information is a distraction. The inability to focus the part of our mind or our brain on the task at hand isn't more productive, it's creating problems. And so the idea that we want to use more of our brain more often is not necessarily the way we want to be optimizing our productivity or the efficient resources our brain uses, right? The brain is a highly evolved and highly efficient tool, an organ that uses 20% of the body's resources. It's consuming a huge amount of the body's resources to process information and organize information and make sense of our environment. So what we should be doing if we're trying to make our mental capacity and energy go further, we should be making it more efficient. So cutting out distractions, focusing on the best and most efficient ways to get information, making sure our environment allows us to focus on the key parts of our work or a key part of our experience, our mental energy, our mental capacity that's going to be most useful. And it's about how to improve efficiency and focus, not just maximizing the amount of activation, trying to light up the entire brain at once.